Morning, everybody.
That one, green one, this one. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Hola, so. Sanje, Chodan, Janjo Bado, Daji, Dola Penja, Sanje, Sanje, Chodan, Janjo Bado, Dane, Daji, Chichen, Dola Penja, Sanje, Robore, Sanje, Chodan, Janjo Bado, Dane, Daji, Chichen, Dola Penja, Sanje, Dayanta, Gade, Paragade, Parasungade, Bodhisattva, Dayanta, Gade, Parasungade, Bodhisattva, Dayanta, Gade, Paragade, Parasungade, Bodhisattva. Hola, so Takancha. Nangeta de Nebasimja Tamjagodo, Sanje Kubaran Boche, Jinia Tobacha, Tichido, and Bajusima Lajan, Switching. Nyansu lango langwa le shingo shimba le tuwa le tuji shuma noa chikodu an kasu baba de dakaja gese chimbo shiwa la zebe ane kasu le juju shungte ne teshe chimbi ningi sometimes.
And as we normally do, we begin by setting a motivation as sincerely as we can to really go say, I must do whatever I possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all living beings. And in order to do that, of course, I need to perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And to perfect these trainings in turn, I must have a perfect understanding of them. And I must be able to gain such an understanding by relying upon a non-mistaken text. And so it is with this in mind that I'm here today to listen to a talk from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, the great text, the mind training text that's composed by the great master Shantideva.
Hotel. Tokanje jige kaso de sem sambo de yang ne yang do geba yin ta mo zo le tang bo yin zang ko ji kar jene ji ko zo ji kaso de yun tu ne yu da ko de tu ma de ne ku no de kan tu do ya bo che wa na di che be ka ke da du ju ka ze ji che tu yin na di ka ko da so no pa do me ba sa ji ba ta che wa wa touch by the kind of can't do it. Take a data that the Chinese Cheva Zamare, could you in by in there and a chicaso the Donna, Sana, Tomatica, subject something no Sanja Kumba Tobacho, and that you can lose Toy Cheto, that was a Sagoye. Roa, lose Toy Cheto, and near Goye, and go Congoye, that Jama Bushonga, Kulon did this journey Java enough. And can't to get the Javati and Jenny and the because can't to get any Janjus and Yamla Joyaki, Tako Chicaso Ravata, one to Jenny Juete to go, nobody take Marwa, nobody take Marwa. What of it? That was a Chinese Samaraka do in a Kulon Jenny Javaina, Gajana, Ranchins and the Chung Joya. They get you much red one.
So it's extremely important to, just to reflect and again and again and again on that kind of motivation that we have just generated, and to kind of really go, to kind of think of it as really cultivating the good mind, of constantly going again, knowing that as beginners, that it's very difficult for us to engage in any virtuous activity perfectly. And there's a great inconsistency in the relationship between, what our aspiration is and what our subsequent behavior is. And so it's extremely important to kind of really generate this kind of really beautiful altruistic motivation again and again and again and again, so that it becomes kind of second nature to us. It becomes our go-to thought whenever we're engaging in any activity. It's not just a case of generating the bodhicitta motivation prior to listening to a Dharma teaching, but rather it should be part of every activity we are doing, whether we're going or coming or sitting or eating or whatever we are doing, engaging, interacting with others, and to maintain that the breadth and depth of that motivation. Now, what I'm doing, what I'm about to do, is in order to lay down the causes for enlightenment, in order to benefit all sentient beings. And so it's kind of like, think about it in all actions of our body, our speech, and everything that we're doing, that we're trying to emulate the Bodhisattva practice here, and to make it like an integration into just our everyday life, that it is kind of that part and parcel of every single action that we undertake. And not just to leave it as just an aspiration, because, you know, aspiration without the kind of subsequent determination to make it, to kind of develop this, to cultivate this into our behavior, is not going to cut it, is not going to be enough to generate the mind of enlightenment. And so it's kind of very, very important that we kind of integrate and inculcate our behavior with this particular motivation.
rangi shoga gochu ne samlatende de cha ana garje bayne anu kulon teta mate bachin jabana anu ko namshina janju sepi da buti ketu ba zamare kene jobala chushi de labtu ti da ko kaso de kaso tuje sona mi de ma isa ko yong tuye chirwa.
And so that this motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. And in order to do that, I know I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And one of those trainings that we can remind ourselves is that if should anybody harm me, I will respond with benefit. Just to kind of really solidify that in your motivation in the morning. That whatever occurs, even if somebody were to insult me or harm me in some way, I will simply only return benefit as much as I possibly can. And to kind of really make that kind of firm motivation in the morning, and try to carry it through all throughout the day, so that you're never separated from that beautiful aspiration. And then whenever you get the opportunity to put it into practice, you kind of become more and more efficient and proficient at being able to do that. So it's not just that you have a very high quality aspiration for enlightenment, but that you are actually making it happen on the ground in every day as well.
Set up lama to be set up ne and chikasore that lama to be set up ranga tago do and tinche making simple town masang never use some lama to be on the and chick because of shaji chani kula chugu dojo so yes and in object and to go lose number two also bakara some what in the commercial.
So that, as we normally do as well, we set up our visualization in the space in front. The figure of the all-conquering, all-powerful figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, in reality our own guru. The figure is seated in the Vajra posture, is one face and two hands, with the right hand in the earth-touching mudra, and the left hand holding an alms bowl filled with nectar in the meditative equipoise posture.
What is and then to beg to Bashaja to Musum Kora, what are doing Nakala show you some such and to bet you cover Teba armor or home we get some set up to go home with a part of Meba Teneta because of that Shingram Janeva Yeshiva, only the Cheba Chantana, Yeshiva the Lama Tube number Chantana tip. And only on Chula never meet you with wicked. What that Yeshiva Musu. That shooting is the what in the most of what in
the and then kind of really generating the certainty of the actuality of the Buddha there in front of us, that this is really occurring. That Buddha is marked by on the crown with an Om, at the throat with an An, at the heart with a Hung syllable. And now light rays emanate from that Hung syllable going out into the pure realms and inviting the wisdom beings and empowering deities from their actual abodes. And we see them actually coming in our visualization. We see that the wisdom beings dissolve into this central figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which then overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya. And again, we really feel that the presence of the wisdom being dissolving, etc., is really, really there.
doing taking what are Sanjay Yunde, don't so much. That the name is Sanke, the Narazu Tendal Kevar, Sanke, the Gassana, Janju Sim, Narazu Tendal Tuki, Narazu the Lamla, Narazu to the Mobats of Sanjeva. What are the name is Narazu to Pashila signature, the way to child there, but the Narazu Motabachet. Motabachet, the Randaranga for the Simja Tamje, what I can more trainer, and the big Taweta, each of the window with the Chiwata, what in the chick gave what you set up.
And in regarding the figure that we have visualized in front, we are cognizant of the qualities, the enlightened qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, as well as the Buddha's skillful means, that the Buddha has no fear of suffering in relation to themselves. It's skilled in removing the suffering of all other sentient beings, who works with great compassion and without any bias whatsoever, and works to benefit without ever thinking of gaining anything in return. And so that we see the figure of the Buddha as a fully qualified enlightened being, and that the Buddha, who started just like us in generating that mind of enlightenment, focused purely on benefiting all sentient beings, meaning us, and then practiced on the path with that same motivation and determination for us, and generated full and complete enlightenment just for us. So we should be aware that the Buddha is really, as it were, solely working for our benefit, and that this develops a tremendous sense of appreciation and faith. So we have that pure faith, that the faith of conviction and the faith of aspiration.
What did this compassion? What did the Gentaka Jaguna? What did the compassion to them when it to make Jesus what you want to get? What Tomarala, Nirin Kai, Yomarite, in a Maranzuke, and some Lotandanke, they were along to Matuaina, and it to make a Tujik Chaju Kase Yovaina, Motor Panto Mare. Chaju, hook, hook. Chaju, that's Sanjay Chaju de Nirin Yomarite, Nirin Yomar, Simcha Tamjala. Simcha Tamja to get Lama Umbazo was Simcha Tamja to Chaju de Nirin Yomari. Yate. In a Narazo, Deva Alonji Babayina, Sanjay Yunde Tone, and it D Kusum to Yunde Tone, and it D Devachen, and D Lambda Social Labeg, that's a Dubakin, Beju Majavayina, then the Alonji Babayina, and Chaju de Kongamara. But the legend what rang it Deva Alonji took to Bachin, Raja Simba Tamja, what did Deva Alonji took to Bachin? What did the legend? What did the legend? Takaja, Chaju di Nala to Bachin. What did they what did you do? And Tobacco Jam Malua, Jam Milua, and Marazu when the Tinja Masana, and got Jam the Pento Marinza, what Marazu when Alon to Bachin. And it didn't the Mamilua, you might have Rala Milua, Takaja, Rangit that when it's somewhere to get to my net, the Mamilo, when it's chatting. What in the and just watching good one.
So it's not only that we have then the kind of impetus to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, but to also know that we are kind of, as it were, in the Buddha's protection. Now, we have to, of course, do something from our side as well. It's not that the Buddha has any kind of bias or discrimination with his own hook of compassion, as it were. But it's that we haven't got the necessary ring into which that hook may kind of like, gain purchase and be able to pull us out of cyclic existence. And so it's kind of from that side that the Buddha is an unmistaken refuge, and that in recognizing that, we also are inspired to do what we need to do to kind of gain, kind of develop that ring into which the hook of compassion can insert itself.
어디를 공부하셔? 어디를 공부하셔? 어떤 심지 탐지가 좀 동해를 나주 심지 탐지 동해를 나주 단데 될 미수배 니지겠네. 아니 때 심지 탐지 대화 탐지 동해 탐지들 저거 니에지 때다 전노버쇼 전노버 전 니에지기 다 때데 전노버쇼 전노버 라마 투가 뭐 징글라도 선 어디를 어느 공부하셔네. 어느 공부하셔는 어디다 되는 시간에 어디다 때 슝지 제시 전부 세자 어디를
And of course, we have all kind mother sentient beings all around us, and we're highly aware of the various sufferings that they are undergoing relative to whatever realm that they are in. That, of course, inspires a sense of compassion in us, really kind of being highly aware of all that suffering. And of course, we wish to remove that suffering, and how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of that suffering. I will do that. I'll be able to do that. And then you generate this sense of kind of invocation. Oh, please, Guru Deity, please bless me to be able to do this. And with this is the kind of point we reach, so that now we say, now I'm ready to listen to a teaching on a mind training text on how to generate the mind of enlightenment and practice the practices of the Bodhisattva. And so that's ideal for what I need to do to benefit sentient beings.
그렇죠. 아니 대단님도 아니 그런 뒤나 세대에 라마투베 공부 유대는 말도 똑바로 받아서. 아니 뒤두배 채도 뒤 심지 탐제 같아도 아니 대배 공부 두배 채도 아니 소소가 저거다 저거 슝디 퇴상 지에들에 대 유대는 말도 똑바로 받아서. 제 두배 소소의 제방가 소소양 아니 유대는 뭐 똑바로 받아서 이 맞죠. 배 저거 로 중리지 저 어다 어떤데 지에 지금 다외의 전에 삼로 샘 술지나 다외 쪽의 삼로대 여바체 어떻게죠? 지금 뉴바트 마냥 봐서 어떻게죠? 어떻게죠?
And likewise, to contemplate simultaneously that we are lacking, so that the situation here is lacking any objective existence, such as like the Buddha in the space in front, and merely imputed by thought. Therefore, all of us are likewise similar. That what this learning that we are doing, the listening to a teaching here, also lacks any objective existence and is merely imputed by thought. That each of us is also lacking any objective existences and is merely imputed by thought. And to kind of maintain that sense of the view of emptiness throughout also is very, very important. Die Shoktrang Gyatang Sumju Soni Re Sumbate Gewale Bashik.
Da Sumba Gewele Bashida Jawa Jawalo Sumja, Bashida Jawa Jawalo Sumja. That Jimbashin Kebachela Jimbajawa. Gewele Nam Randok Jawa. And Gawa Gona Kondo Keshu Shensa Keshu Shensa Gobatane Dane Jawa, which is subject Sumja.
So we had paused at the third main outline, which reads, then the connecting with only virtue, or solely engaging in virtue. And this is divided into three subheadings. The first of which is the practice of generosity in relation to the special basis of generosity. And the second is our own power, or our own capacity to engage in virtue. And thirdly, the quality of virtue increasing more and more, and the necessity of checking that or looking into that.
다 간제 말아서 계획에 빠시 다 대화자와서 간제 쇼가 야 랑완네 건다 마마니 봐도 다 간제 안 다가니 신게 아니 저가서 니마치 둔자 다와 로 미스 차장 다 사회 통해 근데 증바이네 되게가 저가서래 제바데 아니 저 최종 거 자와라 줘야지 되게 그가 저가서래 세디 점 아니 내가 잠을 때내 말이야. 심지어 탐정에도 산재 고마토베 채도 탑에 채도 아니 가서데 탑에 아니 튕겨를 배주 땅 로토바이나 아니 가서데 계획 자와 바시들 자와 요바시 쇠네. 그러다 소소고 지금 파마 빈자다 자와 채다 조보 조모다 자와 채다데 아니 수단님도 딱 되는 소소 내가 내지나네 칼라사야 이나 녀이나 딱 간제 타마 우다의 양제는 간제 지금 탐제 캠페인 줄라 아니 제가 소토바체네 좋아 어떤데서 저도반다 간제 지제 딱 가서데 레그데 제원의 교바시다 제와 제도도 좋아 다들 지금 가서데 지금 소소고 뿌고다도 제네 파마다도 제네 되게 그런가 아니 지금 패배 먼저 패바가 조단장 많이 맞지 아니 지금 가서 꿀롱원에다 누유게 내주 심배도는 진짜와 막인의 심진이 배차네 안 되게 그 삼로 코도가 제와이나 되게 그 아니 최자마자 태바침배 최게 안 제와서 돼 주고도 저거도 다가는 생각나도 칼라사에다 되게 다 소소 저거도 칼라고도 디사에 제자마인 맞잖아 아니 심제 탐제거든도 산제 고바토발라 류대당 고고도 류초고도 어디저도 류초에라 세고도 고고도 대사고도 안 되가 뒤 튕겨라 배주 장도 받지 안 뒤 튕겨 되가 좀 아니 지가서도 다 강투도게 아니 계속 저발 롭도 받지 집안에 알고 쉬어도 저와 차되기로 와 지다 용자 돈에 셔버이나 보다 되게 차되기로 와
So in general, when we look at this subheading of really connecting with solely with the virtue, and so what it implies here is that we are able to transform every action and thought from the moment we get up in the morning till the time we go to sleep at night into a cause for enlightenment, and that that we are, a cause for omniscience, the omniscient state of enlightenment, and that we are engaging in karmas all the time in any case. And so the goal is to transform them into, from that which is kind of just the worldly, kind of like isolated actions that we normally engage in, but rather to transform them into conducive conditions for the final goal of enlightenment. So we're moving away from just the short-term idea of working for this life, but rather we're thinking far ahead into the distance, into the future, into enlightenment itself, and trying to transform all that is actions that we all ordinarily do anyway, into them being recognized and seen by us rather as more conducive conditions for generating the mind of enlightenment, to create those causes. And so this is what we need to work on then, is that motivation, to keep that motivation again to the fore for us, that we are actually creating the causes to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and to make sure too that it is that Mahayana core in our motivation. And so we have to eat. When we eat, of course, it's not just because we're hungry now, but rather we are, like, for example, sustaining the body, the energy of my body, to put it to work for sentient beings. And so this is a much more exalted motivation for eating, and that the body needs energy, and therefore I will do this. And so what we need to be able to do is to make all of this kind of again something that occurs spontaneously and naturally, and so that we're engaging in what is referred to as the actions of the children of the conquerors, with the Bodhisattva behavior, the Bodhisattva lifestyle. And so this is kind of just talking in general about how we can transform all the mundane actions of our life now into being actually seeing them as conducive conditions for laying down the causes for enlightenment itself.
다치다 살마고 쉬우살에 다가 저 말아줘 남입기 나를 저와 샤당데 뒤주는 거 수인에 그 지금 남이 난고를 편도 지에다 로바지에 그 조당지로 밤에 부고라 다에데 그 조당지로 다 이나야 되게 되는가 오 진치에 막 소소 부고도 진치에 막게 심제래 아니 토마메만 진짜 막게 심제 다른 나게 레고 옹니에 부고처럼 용하래 오 다른 뒤에 인자 당하라 배 딜라 편도 저 말아 구급지도 그렇다면 저와 매는 먼저 편도체 또 구급도 하고도 다 소소들 지금 가서 레고 온게 저와 샤잖아 그 지금 그 조당을 통해 그 로바 제고 그 조당 소리 차대도 조당 차대도 당할때 구급지라도 다 야고 쉬우 좀 내 딜 편도니 타입에 맞게 심지 탐자 되다 편도도 봐줘 당내 단다 디 편도와데 마음 발이 이게 추게 편도나 타바다 탐지 개백 고말로 그것도 봐 용하셔 뭐 된대기 꼴론다 되잖아 소소 부고 따져 제데 택바집에 추를 차도 다가리 파마 다나 조고 정몰라서 봐 사장라서 봐 다가제 오예 사장에서 야고 제고 대자 많이 받잖아 진짜가 막연 선제 다른 내가 오예 사장전에 용어를 당말로 구급절에 들 편도에 진짜도 애네 딜러 로바제다 편도에 강에 가야 용마로 샤 가서 좀좀야 또 강에 저는 요공에 잡고 되는데 요모께도 용부로 와 다때문에 또 구급 먹고도 최제 구급 먹고 다디가 남주 직된 거 조당을 야고 제거해 돼 대담나 참 마셔 왔잖아 디 상계의 줄을 더도해지 그러다 상계의 줄을 더도게 제와지 소도 와이나 어다디 문에 전에게 딜레 야고 제와데 가서래 가서 지금 철학은 편도에 차되기도 와 그러와 차 엔테서 단다 제와 되게 마음 발라 최고 돈에 편도 제에게 아니 가서 누바시 되기도 와 다디 쉬우지로 와 쉬우야 근데 구급에서 딱 구급에 라는 마셔 봤잖아 근데 이 맞아 가르쳐봐네 개발을 줘도 가르쳐봐네 상계의 줄을 줘도지 개와 바시를 줘 스틸 왔다 김만도 개와 바시를 검장자자 칼라 마산 대기자 말아 칼라 사이에 돼 아니 최주에 돈을 줘도지
So what we ought to do in terms of, simply saying that we change every action or transform every action that we do and that we need to do on a daily basis, the usual mundane activities into causes for enlightenment. But we can see within those, there are many actions that, for example, when we're in a family situation, we're looking after a child or we're looking after our children, and we're caring and so on, and using all these kind of actions that are good and virtuous, even in their own right. What will be more easy for us to do than to transform those already good virtuous actions into causes for enlightenment? And I've said this many times in terms of, parents looking after a child, simply not just to simply think of it as being my child, but to think rather that, just to this is a sentient being, a kind mother, a sentient being. And due to the karma that we have, I have this connection, this particular connection of mother-child, father-child with this sentient being now. And therefore, I can think about repaying the kindness of all the kind mother sentient beings in the way I treat this child. And so you're doing it not just for that child, but you're creating the causes for enlightenment itself based on all the beautiful actions that you do in caring for a child anyway. And so I think it's very, very important. And in terms of how we treat our partners, our parents in the same way, we're often, it's through these beautiful small acts of kindness. Why can't we transform them into the causes for enlightenment? And it'd be just very natural and normal to do that. And of course, we have problems as well, and we have to watch out for how they can trigger mental affliction, and to kind of overcome that, and to kind of like to kind of try and find a way to create the causes for enlightenment out of that. And so it's really making a connection to the causes for enlightenment in all the actions that we do and all the virtuous actions that we do anyway. And so to understand that by doing so, we are not just creating a better life in the present, but also we're looking after ourselves from life to life to life. And in the future, we will have more capacity and opportunity to actually benefit through the Dharma itself, and so that when we engage, for example, in a small act of generosity or help for our child, we can again, we can insert in there that may this be the cause to help all sentient beings in a similar way, and indeed over and beyond that, may it be the cause to be able to help sentient beings through the Dharma itself in a future life. And so it all can really pay off very handsomely. And all we have to do is create that habit that our virtues, to do more and more of virtue from AM to PM throughout the whole day, and to ensure that virtue is maximized into becoming a cause for enlightenment. And so again, like it's the food that we have is not just to be eaten and gobbled up, but rather to see how it is a cause for enlightenment. So as the holy beings say, again, I was quoting that if you have the means, then even in a householder's position, you can easily create the causes for enlightenment. If you can't, then whatever you do won't help.
Chila yue de namjuge mizinala shoga lambanya kwanda manya pato chede de chatanji ane che samlo ta shime kono chege twingen da ane chedubege to chegla chela pa kaza ka gyurshima ina dia tegba chimbe chela ka gyurshima ina ane ko jije chesu joa jungurwa jije chesu joa ane chedel te jawa yuge chatuyechi ro chatuya jungurwa da wote desredwa wote cha.
So really, it's recognizing that the means for the attainment of enlightenment is not something, or not that which is so distant, but rather within all those who are next to us, who we interact with on a daily basis, and that it's really down to our own thinking of each moment, how we can see every interaction as a condition to create the causes for enlightenment, to make our life a genuine Mahayana existence by constantly transforming every otherwise mundane action into that which can be a cause for enlightenment itself.
Because la lengal pakel practical kan patro get to tire that ko de kal chiba ina ana kai she tang la chinjen ko bab tu mo do ta ni ri so la lengal kan tu bab tu wa che tang la de lengen ro tire to.
And so it's kind of like important to I recognize that many people listening here are older students, and we have had these kind of mind training advices before, but it can be the case where you kind of go, oh, yes, I know, I've heard this before, I know that. But what really counts, and the only thing that really counts, is how you integrate what you know into all of your actions throughout a day right now. And it's kind of like how you actually practice it and to make it practical for your life, so that you are able to review on a 24-hour basis as to how consistently you created the causes for enlightenment out of all of the different interactions you had during the day. And so with that sort of thinking, you know, we don't have any kind of retirement like we do from our work, and so that continues beyond retirement and right through every moment that we have left of our lives.
진배신 개발자라 진바자와 내서 그래다 지단전에 다 심제 산제다 마 심제니가 신개발자 차대요 이내야다 지금 이내야 당고도 나랑 쪽에 직가서다 가서 배배기요 소속에 직가서 배나 지금 최대 원도 전에다 그 개체 중 지혜로도 연구를 왔다 그랬는데 그거 제대로 거든다 다시 개발자도 진바자와라서 지바자와라 자war래 다바라 문신기 랑방 님보이네 랑바니 연대단의 편도신 동해월에 개체 교수.
And so the first subheading under this more main heading is that we look into generosity in relation to special bases. And here we think, you know, that over the course of even you know, this life, whether we pay a greater or lesser attention to the affairs of this life, still we can augment the power of our virtue through different generosity towards different bases. And the verse itself will make this more clear. Verse number 81 says, always being motivated by great aspiration, or being motivated by the remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit, and misery, great virtues will come about.
지가솔에 지금 답변이 개월에 차셔는 변에 지바다에 소로 차셔는 아니 집에 제대로 착sem게 어떻게 좀 많이 받지는 같이 지가솔에 디 지바다에게 아니 지가솔에 다 튕겨 소라지 차샤네 근데 차샤는 문신제 랑밤때 둠바타부 자와다 다까지 지가솔에 디 가서도 착배 오게 아니 지바당마도 받는데 맞아 디 미준 속에 녀보 예 아니 지바당도 받지 아니 그날라네 아니 라와니게스다 아니 당사가 유대 아니 배나 말아주고 연대다 대배신 아니 군조숨 그 유대 시베고는 군조숨 야초바 피해 다가니 생게 되게 아니 체디 원도 전화 소소 파마스 빼면서 진짜 진짜는 아니 파마스 로다 가자저 파마소라 아니 가서 야초바 피해 파마를 펜토에 다가니 생야 사주 통교 전에 강내 텐네 동해진 게 신, 답변은 내봐다 냠타다 강에 봉화를 와다 집어들래서 좀도와나 올라 겨울락 좀 무슨 교르셔고 오자.
And so here this verse is discussing a virtue that is just not a once-off act of virtue or once or twice display of a virtue, but rather that something that is continuous, is constant, and that there is kind of no kind of 1 or 2 year kind of career break from virtue, but that we have made it, you know, part and parcel of all of our activity in all situations that we find ourselves in. And it's just describing here then how we are greatly motivated. On the one hand, we have a kind of tremendous inspiration to engage in virtue, and also that we have integrated the antidotes to kind of the inconducive attitudes to engaging in virtue. Say, for example, in this context of generosity, we want to engage in generosity, but we know that one of the great obstacles to generosity is attachment. And so here we are aware of the kind of antidote discourage attachment, because we know it's going to interfere with the purity of our generosity. So we have that mind of generosity that is not tainted by attachment, that we give to what is the object of good qualities, which is the triple gem, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We give to the basis of benefit, which is regarded as our parents, and we give to the basis of suffering, as related in the verse, as the basis of those who are bereft and those who are in a miserable state and really needy. And so this is the way we kind of distinguish between our acts of generosity. And it's said that as on the basis of that, great virtue, great bliss will arise.
because of the that good also the shin kebar chere what the tagane seda pamadia and basically get chbo jago range chu zuba range luden de yongor luden de jiga ga so da ga jiga yabu yoela ani jiga pamale da dende luden 중화 da de bi da yabu yoela pamale shu ralegi do da de pame ding 촌 용 de so de get chbo da range chede pamade get chbo leondu and changame pamade get chbo lengo 디잉아마데 계정 아니 안데는 심제 탐제디 계정뭐 용어데 디 톤의 용토에서도 최대 파마디 계정뭐 찍으면은 생감에 파마 계정뭐 했으네다 아니 처음에 조선을 차기로 왔다 좋아 최대 파마디 계정뭐 이마 약보지 심마이나 아니 디잉아마 파마데 계정뭐래 아니 디잉아마데 계정뭐 디잉아마데 아니 강가 계정뭐 차온데 아니 디 계정뭐다 디 계정뭐 말했어요 요말 강가 계정뭐 아니 심제 강가라 아니 저기 가서데 이원게 장바지 깨토에도 이원게 장바지 깨토에도 왔다 세티 파마디 게첨버 찍이 매바이나 아니 생감에 파마 게첨버에서는 다시 우시고 좋아게요 말에 네가는 생감마데 켈렌 투마도 내 주제제 나가 이제 세티 게첨버 파마디 게첨버 토이나 아니 생감마 여바지 줍도바이나 생감에 파마디 게첨버 이바도 땡게 장거래 띵감마데 게첨버 장거래 아니 대대자 아니 통합매반에 아니 소소 파마 강가래 아니 개체부 창부도 와 근데 심제 탐jel이 개체부 창부도 와 다들 파마 개체부도 심제 심바 개체부 말이 쓰고요 말 다들 파마 개체부에서도 파마 되는 워트에서도 와 파마디 개체부도 워트도 와 세디 때네 다들 루규시하고 말은 소소 세디가 영화가 더 나하고 해서도 와 아니 디단에 아니 생감에 파마디 셰도다 디감에 파마디 셰도도 와 경마치 줍도 봐이나 안데 아니 심제 탐제 개체부 이거 창부도 와 그거 내가 쇼진 있어요. 맞아. 되게는 다 배나 동네에 냠타와다 되게 셔도 왔다 되게 그 갑도대 강에 쉬고 채도 지점들. 다들 아니 된데가 동네 정도 동네 주 저어데 아니 단지 머리 봐다. 단지 머리 봐라 중앙에 아니 단지 머리 봐 상황도 좀 심제 강가 아니 개체 몰리지. 예. 다 동네나 추대로 차대도 다 그저 거기 당고대 지고 라바되네 아니 되네 거기 봐좀 뭐지 좋아하는데 아니 그 차와 되게 내수 뭐 쳐도 좀 것도 아니 심지어 탐잘 편바 좀 도해지
So in these three different categories or bases on which we can engage in the act of generosity should not, of course, be limited to that. And we can see here with some analysis that is, of course, this is not the intention in any case. So it's referred to the triple gem of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha referred to the basis of good qualities, and that this goes without saying. But in terms of the second category of the basis of benefit being one's parents, of course, it's very much important that we are able to have that appreciation for our parents in this life, of considering how absolutely crucially important our parents have been in providing us with a human body that is, it has the capacity to engage in the Dharma and to practice the Dharma. And so from that point of view, that it's extremely important that we have this a deep appreciation for our parents in this life. And then we can extend that to our parents in previous life, and from that to a previous life before that. And so we can go right back to all sentient beings having been our mother since beginningless time. And so we need to, and we can have that similar appreciation. There's no reason to assume that our parents of previous lives have not looked after us as well as our parents of this life have. And so it's very, very important. Let's say on the contrary, if we lack an appreciation for our parents in this life, then it's kind of really difficult for us to have an appreciation for our parents in previous lives. So the objective is to understand that this benefit, this basis of benefit, is that which kind of encompasses all sentient beings, all kind mother sentient beings. And from that, we develop that sense of affectionate love. And so again, it does depend on our being able to accept the concept of past and future lives. And so this all makes it possible. If we don't accept past and future lives, of course, we can't use this reasoning anyway. But here we're going back to beginningless time. And from, you know, our own, we can call on our own experiences just to know how much we have been loved and cared for and by our own parents. And then we can extend that back to the parents of a previous life and go back and back and back. And I think this is a very, very crucial point, to be able to really recognize how crucially important all sentient beings have been in our kind of reality now, and to kind of generate that real desire and inspiration to repay that kindness through considering all sentient beings with this affectionate love. And of course, then the basis of suffering is the way in which we can be of benefit, especially through generosity, of benefiting people directly, those who are poverty-stricken and those who are bereft and those who are in a desperate situation. And also to consider that, you know, suffering itself is not something that happens in isolation here. It is caused by the grasping at true existence, the self-grasping. So when we look upon it from the outside, you know, it looks like a course, the division of the basis of a special basis of, say, generosity. But when we look into it, we can see it becomes more and more and more and more all-encompassing, of course, but also more and more subtle in its meaning.
다 배주다나 랑게 세샤와다 지다 랑 루초알 배주 사고 요래 동고 고고도 얘네야 되네 아바지와 얘나 되네 돈데 당게 요와 얘나 아니 샬라 짐바 땅 도바이나 아니 코디 노르디 아니 고쳐 봐라 디메나 다 지금 노르 고마주고 소치 아니 디 노르디 남신나 라나 카테 그래 라마 야바자 카테 도 다다 라마 요데 아니 Konchok and Pemba Saba Jachbo and Jibatan Tobayina and Nordic Nibu Kasota Nordic Nibu that put Takshu to Tuguru, and a Chanju Semi Kunelani and the Shella Chibapre, Jibatan Chatobayina, Sanjay Koma Jutu Tugua. The men are not the Namshina around the Kate to it. And the Kate Tona and that not the kind Pantoyo Marwa. Kind Pantoyo Maria. Rua. 다 된데 이마인도 것도 노게 니볼레데 다 지게 랑게 루초엘라 아니 베주탄에 되는 돈들 하게 도나 아니 집바탕 투바이나 쇼바피 집바탕 투바이나 노게 니볼레 렌투고 도와 좋아.
And so for those, say, with wealth, of course, it's important that they kind of use that. Of course, one has to look after the basics of not having enough to eat and drink and a house and a roof over your head and so on. But over and above that, you know, really, it's important to engage in the act of generosity and sort of, you know, to kind of make this money or this wealth that you have meaningful. And it's very, very important that you're able to get that right motivation and right attitude in giving the extra money that you have, and because of course one time you will have to separate from it anyway, and so rather than that, have this really interesting, powerful motivation that you are going to use it to create the causes to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And in this way, you're going to make use of it. And in this way, you're taking the essence of that wealth. You really are. And that mind of enlightenment, motivated by that mind of enlightenment, leading you to the state of enlightenment itself, is very, very important, as opposed to the opposite of that, where you just hoard your wealth without doing anything with it. And you're just basically waiting for the day when you're going to be separated from it. And it has been of no benefit whatsoever. And so therefore, to really think about how to take the essence of the wealth that you have, and the way to do that is to be able to give that with the motivation of enlightenment.
There is a Chimba Lonju Timki Tesla, Chimbatangwala Tene, Lonju Yunguras, Kawachibala, and the Chico Sobakobala Tene, Su Zebu Yungu, Su Tai, Tong Debu Yunguras, and the Casa de Anichiga Tarwa, Sudu Suala Tene, Hadami, Combatoras, Mixigita, Sochu, Sudula Suateneta, Hadami. Hadami, and the Casa Comatobres. What are the Sungudo Naming to Inaya, take what Champion Yamne chicken Chibatal, land and Namila Raw Makinch. Naming to Rancho Yungure, Ina Rangi, Raw Mebach, Pamba to be Tagara, Sozulige. Pamba Jumne, Jubati, Sanjay Comato Guru, Simja Tamjek, Sanjay Comato, Shingi Tungu Chetungo. Rala teach Batawana, Kawachama Chuchu Chagu, the Tenegra, what's on the Mebach. Soba Comba in a Kawachama suit, the Buchagris, Tenegi, Raw Meke. What a country, Children Suaina, and Soju by Children on the Kawachama Hadami Comato, Tadi, Kibuchumu Chugorwa, there is some time the tea, Raw Mebach, Simja Tamjek, Sanjay Comato, Children Sungi, Soba Congi, Chimatangis. But Rala, land and Naming Raw Metikich. What are the nigger, Samasangach? Get Chimatana Koranga Kushab, did what's on in the making. What are the Gogoy? Ranches at the job making.
So as it says in the words of the Buddha, from good ethical conduct comes the fortunate rebirth of a human being or a celestial being. From generosity comes wealth. From patience comes a beautiful body, one that is that others find appealing. And so these are describing the ripening results of virtuous actions. And so in being aware of them, we are aware of the benefit of engaging in virtue. And so, but it's kind of like very important for us that we gained the best virtue possible from any acts of generosity or good ethical conduct or patience or any other virtue, in fact, and to transform everything we do into being a cause for enlightenment itself. And this means that like we are done with any expectation. You know, we don't have an expectation that when we engage in generosity that we're going to be wealthy in the future, that if we're engaging in good patience that we're going to become beautiful in our next rebirth. That these are kind of aspirations for a smaller capacity being. And we're beyond that. We're kind of meant to be engaging in actions according to the Mahayana ideal. And therefore, every single action that we engage in is not just a virtue, it is a virtue that is laying down the causes for enlightenment itself. And that all of our thinking should be in that way, without any kind of attachment to what we might get out of it ourselves. In other words, to have no connection with self-cherishing involved.
Tende majona tambo gyawa do ana jela yangwa chammajan jode jela gyoba kiga mungu yong de do ro yong de nyama nge yago da nge nor sha singa da butne yong de ko ko rewa de takta yo ma ro da rewa takta yo ba ina macha ba chawa ina kan ge yo ma ta kimangal kugap joso gyawa duege an ta de kugap de lawra ta de to phangbo yong ge ma to nyama yago cheba de gyoba ke de yong ma ro ta so so le da nami le rewa ye cha de ene nyama yago che and Jella meeting it was so to Jasona 주자저 당에 막혀 내 밑에 야구 배 제와 인데 로바 배 먹고 지마 먹고 다다다 미디 두자리 상 당에 님 로바자도 배사서 교바께 될 용되기도 와 용되기도 와 다가서 남일을 레와 카데와 로와 어디를 용되기도 와 로와 어디를 인도 딱 간제 렌다 남일 로와면은 아니 가야는 가면 교가 가르쳐 버리는 내가 가면 뭐 소소 개와 두고 대대와 로와 아니 그 남이 용해야 돼 용거래 레와 매바 이내 거 줄소나 되고 용거로 와 모두 싱갈라 짜이 레와 요마레 싱가 세답서 짜이 레와 요마르 때고 짜기 주대 예대 거 짜게 것도 와
싱글라 그래서 they 레와 요마레
말에 싱갈라 짜이 레와 짜 그라스
아하
짜이 레와 요마르데 이래야 거 짜이가 사변제 거 깨는데도 거 짜게 것도 와 거 다가는 이제 가라 저기 진바땅에 그 남인게 되버들라 아니 개와 치마 롱주 치모데도 용되기로 왔고 이나 랑에 원에다 특별 준비 취해 두는 게 랑제젤라 디체도 갑자기 짜에게 돈 짜고고 요도 아니 뒤에 돈을 벌어 매버잖아 렌다 남에 라와 매다야 남이 되고 용거로 봐 용아 매자 뒤 남이 되보다 타바도 담백히면 줄어 줘되기도 봐 그래서
So it's really saying here too that when we it's very important to be proactive in establishing this kind of thinking into every action that we engage in, particularly in generosity and in virtues related to that. Because if not, and this is something we often see where somebody has kind of acted in a virtuous manner towards somebody or given or being very generous to somebody in the past when they were friendly, then you've fallen out. And suddenly now there's this negative negative relationship with that other person, and you have this sense of regret about all the generosity you afforded them in the past. And so I kind of think, oh gee, it was a big mistake for me to give them so much. Look at now, they don't have any appreciation and so on. And so this is, of course, a mistake on our part. This is kind of a demonstration of self-cherishing on our part. And so there can be no expectation whatsoever. Once it's parted from your hand, that's gone. It's no longer yours to speak about in any way. And so it's kind of like, we have to guard against the change in relationship that you may have with somebody that you were generous towards or you did a good deed for. Not to think about it as, something bad, and not to think about it in regretful terms, like you gave so much and look at how little they appreciate, etc., etc. And we can see that, these kind of separations and so on and becoming distant from people is not something unusual in any case. But we should have locked in our virtue a lot more carefully and definitely, and make sure that it is the cause for enlightenment that we want it to be, and it's gone. We don't have to, and regretting it is only kind of in a way injuring that virtue. And it's like the farmer having no expectation when he may not have any expectation when he sows the grass seed, but the grass seed will sprout and produce grass nonetheless. And so here we don't have any expectation of anything back when we're engaging in virtuous activity, and we let the law of cause and effect do its thing anyway.
어떤데 답안제 되게 다가는 시행 먼저 진바땅와 인바이네 추준송와 인바이네 소바코마이네 되게 내주 차상지 하고 봤잖아 아니 디다 좀 삼로다에 디다 좀 제디다 개치 못 봐. 아니 대인데 아니 대바치비 람 냠네 지기나 아니 진바땅도 삼로 갔던 것도 아니 기부 중에 랑게 냠네 지기나 진바땅도 삼로 갔던 것도 소바콤도 삼로 갔던 것도 아니 그랬지네 아니 가서데 간데지 주바이나 아니 딜람데 투바 요고도 기부 등을 가서 그 집바당도 삼로 간데스고도 소바콘도 삼로 추든고도 삼로 다가 기부 침묵이 냠네 지게서도 아니 집바당도 삼로 간데스당고도 소바콘도 삼로 간데스당고도 추정성도 삼로 컨테스트 땅고 딱고라 디다 투바 삼로 땅도 봐나 디다 투베 제고 정거도 봐 그러와 돼야지 제보데 태바 첨비 투바 제 아니 삼로 땅에 디다 투바 좀 마중아이나 아니 제보도 연구 말아 봐 그러와 아니 거 유가 되시고도 유들 정말 땅에 땅에 제 아니 컨테스트 땅고도 아니 땅에 아니 뭐가 컨테스트 제고도 삼로 컨테스트 하고 되게 찾아지게 아니 시바이나 아니 디 슝다 투베게 네 제보도 소소로 연구로 봐 연구로 봐 어떤 제대로 아니 거 개와 두발에 켜봐 제고도 나 개와 두고 요성의 평균모도 개와 가리면 어쩌 봤지 아니 개와 두발에 아니 켜봐 개와 두발에 그 가서데 좀다 시바 켜봐 진 거고도 어떤 제는 딱까 제는 딱까 라린가를 커버 제디 개쳐버려도
So it's important that we have this sort of very skilled approach to the doing of virtue, and to be able to get the whole picture, as it were, of what's entailed in the act of generosity, in the abiding in ethical conduct, in the practicing of patience, etc., etc., and that here to be able to act accordingly when we have a full understanding is extremely important. And this means to reflect on what is the initial thinking or motivation for a smaller capacity being when they engage in an act of generosity or ethical conduct of patience and so on. What will be the thinking behind a medium capacity being's act of generosity, etc. And then to kind of consider what must be the motivation for somebody pertaining to the Mahayana path with the greater capacity being, and what should their motivation be, and how then should they go through with the actual act, say, of generosity, and how then should the dedication look in relation to that act. And so every part of the karmic action is done with full knowledge and with great care, and so that we become skilled in virtue. I think this is really worthwhile reflecting on.
근데 소소 로에게 아니 슝다고 배자다고 돼 택바침이 슝이 뭐도 팬도고 말했어. 랑 강사 그 로게나 디 가서데 라렌가겐 강사데 엔 택바침뭐 투바지 도와이나 아니 택바침이 최차게 됐어. 디보도 랑게 가서 로에나 다 슝디 택바침고 슝이 뭐도 팬거 말해. 강사 디 로게인데 디 지금 강사데 택바침이 최다 투바지 도와 고고 됐어. So as
the great holy beings say again as quoting here, is saying that the reading of the Mahayana texts may not be of benefit. What really counts is whether the reader is able to integrate what they read, the Mahayana ideal, into practice. Right? Are they able to act in accordance with that Mahayana ideal? That's what's necessary.
다가 이제 먼저 상하게 남래지겠다. 가시 옹슈 전에 망고게 이 단걸 하게 다기다고 된거 열때 얘네야 다기 코란 단도 되는데 그 치코란데다 배 상하 하이 요가스타다 토부 시절에 간사 코란 삼로 단단데 아니 지 가서래 라니 지고 시도 되니 잡었다 랑 야와데 랑 제제 슈 첨보주 여와 이나 숙청보지 위원회 제대로이나 아니 그 로에 가서 다게 잡아 돼야 되다 왜 하이 요구 스탠다드 등거다 간사다 하이 요구 스탠다드 그 통계 tango 요마로 와 고쳐 자되고 요마로 와 대다 고당 같아서 집발해 와.
And similarly, we can speak in terms of Tantra, that Tantra is not in the words that describe Tantra in the Tantric texts, or even that you have taken an empowerment, but rather Tantra either resides or not whether or not the person who has become aware of those texts and has taken that empowerment, whether they are living their life, they're using their body, speech, and mind in harmony with the tantric ideal.
탐에게 나셔 가네 아니 랑 동반이기 아니 저거 가서다 저거 동반이기 딱 떠나는 자를 때마다 동반이 과 숙심부터는 아니 저 가서다 아니 랑 하르세네 아니 저 가서다 탐에게 나셔 가네 가나 산자 딱바람 잡아시 차도가 되게 제가 삼로 좀 해보자 아니 되게 아니 상하고 흉쳐보지 다기 아니 쳐보지 아니 나를 된다바나다 된다바네 다 최대 상하게 최대다 차대가 요마르와 차대가 요마르 다들에서 최대바 침배 최인배 매배 가사 대바 침보 송아지 고스가 왔다 되래 다들 이마 인자 되네 이마자 다들 저가 뒤인데 애를 라라데 튕게도 상어서야 되겠지 모르다 튕게도 상어서잖아 아니 거기다 투바 걸려서 차기도 차금도 아니 차다 맞아 되네 아니 뒤주고 슝뒤줄라 떼잖아 좋아 배는 거저 장주세배 랍자 냠네 지게 제바이나 아니 자주세배 슝 아니 전주다보다 아니 소소도 퉁고도 들었다잖아 아니 퉁고도는 왔다 되다 퉁고도는 왔다 지금 상금에 와서 저는 같이 상어 소고도 뒤다 있잖아.
So, like, for example, in terms of Tantra, whether or not we have been able to assimilate the most important aspect of a Tantric attitude, and that is to put a stop to ordinary appearance, to be able to view all through pure appearance, to be able to generate oneself out of emptiness, and so on. This, if you are unable to do that, there's no way you're living in any way a tantric existence. And so this is very, very important that kind of we are able to engage in what we are able to kind of to have to make the kind of the conditions for what we are wanting to practice as complete as possible. That we kind of like do that from our own side, then use the texts to check whether or not we're living in harmony with the ideal that we have taken on. For example, if we're talking about mind training and developing the mind of enlightenment, we can look into this text, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and to see, okay, according to the verses, according to what's being explained here, is my life in the way I live my life? Have I am I living in accordance with the bodhicitta ideal?
랑도게 자와니 자와래 캐신 대당 된제네 레남다게 따도자 레남 꿀라 술라야 되바 자와 마이노스.
The second of the subheadings is to point out that the engaging in virtue is in our own hands. In other words, we have the power from our own selves. And verse number 82 says, endowed with wisdom and faith, I should undertake all that I do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake.
What are the nature the similar general Lando and Nella casings, and Rota catch you, what they were to make me do it, and they you Karisha, to make you Karisha. And congestion, there were tennis and what you could do. And that to get the congestion and that to make you good do. The puts our Karisha, to get the more you get nature to get Chatan, Shebachan, Lando and Nella casing. And then a catcher, and then there were to be a Tunga Segi, and a Tika Sodata, give a chola back. 가서래 다 가자 저 가조다 대배잖아 다 가자 저거 다 뭐던데本来尊重顺的叫我来抓我说了第一个原点团的抓紧的搞出到点吧现在那给我连了大概大多就大多加了给我连这个了那这个说的大对大多那咱们结果这是是吧我的讲就是
So this verse again is kind of like assuming here that we have a thorough understanding of all, for example, the conducive conditions necessary for engaging in virtue. That means we have become quite expert in knowing what it is that needs to be discarded and what it is that needs to be taken up in the pursuit of virtue, and then to do that pursuit, to engage in that pursuit with full enthusiasm and commitment. So in this way, we can consistently engage in good quality virtue, a kind of a virtue that is fully qualified. And so this goes beyond, like, I mean, we know that, you know, we want happiness and we don't want suffering. We have looked into then the causes that bring about that happiness that we want, the causes that must be overcome or discarded for the suffering that we do not want. And therefore, we've looked into what are all the conducive conditions for the former, all the inconducive conditions for the latter, and are applying them. And so here too, then it's like once we have that, we can consistently understand that we have the kind of capacity of mind to really just dedicate ourselves to virtue. It's kind of saying, you know, why wouldn't we? We don't need anything else or anybody else to rely on. We can sort all this, and we actually need anyway to sort all this out for ourselves. And that, as pointed out, when we have, you know, that level of effort, that enthusiastic effort, it's actually defined as that which rejoices in virtue. And so we have that kind of a seizing of every opportunity joyfully for virtue.
다들 두배 살아 아니 랑게 뉴바데 랑게 하고 받지네 레나 꿀라 술아야 떠봐 저 많이 와다들 두배서 개외 레나 그 근데지 뭐이나 랑게 로다 되네 소소고 뉴바 소소로 뉴바 와 딜라 되네 다 제거절레스 주바 만도 어서 저 신술아야 떠봐 많이 노스 나가자 오 셔바 저게 된다라고 오 딜레 디 야가리샤스 오 딜레 많이 저 랑게 로다 뛴전에 아니 와드가리샤 좋아. 앞에다 들어가서 앞에다 믹서기 들어가서 다 가서래. 저기 인터넷 안 된다나 아니 저기 답배자 망부 쉬우주 요바 인자. 아니 저기 딜레디 누바치 안서래. 되게 파제 대화다 상하데 누바치 안서래. 상하데 제고서래서. 다가 이제 인터넷 미게 랑게 로이 누바 거저도 딜레드네 삼도 마당하체. 그거 저기 아니 저기 딜레디 야가서 딜레디 맞아. 소소로이 누바다 뜨베 토네. 아니 거 인제 좋아했지. 하도는 배나 상하데 저좀 봐이나 투모 남장 것도 맞아 봐라 상하데 네가 가야요 말이야. 좋아. 상하스인데 년중 장세 양답에 따와게 배 지가소래 지가소래 지 심배토네 네가 용도해지. 디지 마세나 네가 매디가 저래도 와. 네가 홍호 패배 손에 들에다. 상하 네가 더이 간데 도면은 홍호 패배를 했지. 왔다 가자 지금 아니 왔다 저 미지지레스 데스저자마자 랑이 되게 내도 차사 심받잖아. 아니 되네 냠내 제베 갈라 아니 거지 고리 맞춰와. 왔다 가자 지금 제네다 랑을 로다 되네 다 제디 개체 못했어. 술라야 또 봐자 뭐 이노스 현지가 지기도서 뒤제고서 말다 랑을 로이 네가 근데서 대다 투바잖아. 아니 가시 또신 거는 왔다 제 지금 송구도 봐.
And so the second half of that verse, which describes, I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake. And this is because you've done the necessary analysis within your own mind to see what capacity you have within your own mind. And you know that. And you know then what level you are at as well. It's very, very important. And that it's kind of like here, it's not what others say or what's better or what's worse, but something that we have figured out from our own selves. And so especially in this modern world of internet opinions, that they're kind of a dime a dozen going out there telling us that this attitude, this approach is better, that Tantra is supreme, and therefore you must do that. But you have to know your own mind. You have to know where you're at in your own mind. And so, and to understand too, that, you know, if you're kind of thinking that I must only do the best because only the best is good enough for me, and therefore I will engage in Tantra, then you're really are kind of like engaging in a total waste of time. And that there's no power to Tantra without it being based on the perfection vehicle qualities of renunciation, the mind of enlightenment, and the correct view of emptiness. And so it's kind of a, you know, you have to base any even attempt at Tantra on those three powerful bases. And so it's saying, as the masters say, that without that, all your Tantra is going to amount to is hong hong pei pei. It's basically saying it's just you're just saying gibberish. And so it's kind of like we engage in our practice in the correct order. That practice is as complete as we can make it, and because we know where we stand ourselves, we've done the self-analysis, and that we are doing then the best virtue that we possibly can.
라이나 상기 그래서 뭐다들 다들 시부는 누가 쳐버리셨어. 뭐 딜라밥에 간사디야. 딜라밥에 간사디야. 오가서데 자제 상하지 걸어와. 자제상 뒤삼로 마당하자. 소소 자제 가와도 삼로 마당하자. 오 다들 샤바드다. 개체 장면 솜스기도 되다. 시부제는 버리셔. 뭐다 이제 저거 시부 상기도 다들 시부제를 샤상다 치마이나. 아니 너되기도 와. 너되기도 와. 다 간자 개반에 개배 봐도 이네 거기도네 다 나다면도 된대게 아니지 가서데 거체 준비 지어봐 이네 오다디가 좀 두고 와 된대게 샘쟁게 된 주변에서도 개반에 개배 봐도 려땅 마도 괜지 안배 뉴도 상기해지다 가와 그러와 개반에 개배 봐도 좀내 죽이 쓰는 게 된대게 거체 준비 숙처보 요근지 학도도 앞에 샘쟁 찌기 된도야 아니 저기 샘제들 펜바 두고 얘나 아니 배 저기 가서데 냐외게 아니 맨날에 개발에 봐도 내거네 내기 삼자 된데 과제가 준비 된데 요긴지 거기도 와. 나 된데 매바자 와다 랑 도고 저기 동네에 타도나 삼사자 와다 나지 심지를 샤선다 아니 와다디 나거나 차고야 말봐. 나거나 차기면 와. 와다 되게 그가 저기 내주야고 마시 받잖아. 가서 내주 차장지 셔봐이나 아니 왔다 거기 내주고도 쓰다 만와 제도로 와. 그러와. 제도로 와. 어딘지 인바도 왔다 저 학동도 들어가서 저 랍제 개치버리셔. 개치버리도 와. 저 첨자 연구도 왔다 당부 남배초라 도나래 제 아니 되네 저기 남배초 벤 다와 지니를 롭종제 아니 지카제 신 되네다 미 인지하고 요인사다 인터넷나 담아놓은 거에 열와 아니 다디도 뒤 조금 심지어서 딜레다 디야사르스 아니 그제세계들이 영어 되기도 와 영어도 카야 말이니 이제 다 내주 찾아 마셔 버와 거기 내주 찾아 좀 마셔 봐이나 아니 아니 저기 남중 먼저 잘랐던 같이 단체 제가 있는데 그 영어에 걸어 매와 같은 미 컴나 로고로 컴다 투바 뉴바도 투바 미기 가서 냠내 지금 보고 냠내 집어 보고 아니 집인게 아니 지가서데 지가서데 되게 뉴발에 때는 두고 그러면도 먼저 잘라녀다 소리 말와 다 되게 내주 마시면 돈 용되기도 와. 그래서 컴다 투바잖아. 소소기 같이 제 투사래 rang on the Sabaja Gazet Jetuza Tita Tuba, to the Getchimurwa. And then I got new watch the Chetu, the good watch Yaya Taich. Love to catch Musharish of the shop. How don't you take us a catch Mursha?
Again, those who kind of like a person who maybe has had a little introduction to the Dharma and study for maybe a month or so, and then gets on the internet and spots the great promise of Tantra, that you can attain the state of enlightenment in one lifetime, or even better, in just 3 short years. That you can attain the state of enlightenment and go, yep, that's for me. That's the best possible path. I'm going to attain enlightenment that way. And so it's kind of like in a way, it's sad. It's kind of, there's no fault to that person because they don't have a clue. They don't have an understanding of the complete path or the context in which the Tantra is taught. And so, you know, that's those statements with regard to Tantra are only relevant to a person who has the complete prerequisites of having generated, you know, and not just the renunciation and the bodhicitta and the mind of the correct view of emptiness that is, it kind of serves as the basis, but has developed the enthusiastic effort to be genuinely prepared to dedicate themselves for the benefit of one sentient being, to spend eons in the hell realms, and that without any kind of with complete sincerity around the absolute certainty of mind. So it's a powerful motivation that is able to kind of like that kind of must be there in order to be in harmony with that aspiration. And so kind of like, and from eon to eon, you know, they have generated these prerequisites to be in that position. For a person who's just had a month of Dharma, how is that possible? It's not. And so it's kind of like, you know, and it's kind of like important that, you know, you kind of like, for whatever path you are taking, or even whatever level of path you are taking on, that you are able to do the necessary self-analysis to see how well qualified you are to engage in that kind of path. It's very, very important.
And the Teddy, Diggy, Getching Bush, the second jigger, and best lapchable church, you get to Lavachangas and the cover shoulder. Teddy, Diggy la Pecaso de Lutan to Genji. Teddy, Diggy la pet. Donna, Diggy, some Mariba, Kawachimegi, and it's Model Hadami, Diggy, Getchable Massic, but Casota, best. Suggestion any Diggy suggestion la Dewa Tamja Dunga Tamja Jawa Chodan, not a carcinachi, some that they look down to Genchi. Any necessary Maba and go on Coramento. Said Diggy Geshe was showed the second chicken, and then and Lavachai in the Shiwuji. New to Sanke, you make it. What the Range come to Bachana. New weather to Bachana draw quite the catch about it. But to get the shooting that, and then you're good to know any magical dry or
Likewise, you know, for somebody who considers this life to be so important, and this life's happiness to be so important that they're completely dedicated to it. You know, for that kind of person to kind of think that they can reach out their hand and attain enlightenment, it's kind of like a poppycock, really. It really doesn't make any sense. Even to attain, you know, the fortunate rebirth of a human being or a celestial being in the next life is going to be a major challenge, because they're too dedicated to the so-called happiness of this life. And, you know, other sentient beings are really a kind of a distant thought in their head. And so it's kind of very important to, again, pull back to do that analysis to see, you know, what capacity I'm at the moment, to start where you are, and to kind of like go, okay, then I can start making progress from there to broadening my perspective, broadening my motivation more and more and more, but to do so in a kind of like a sober order of things. That's very, very important.
Suba Kewa Kone Kondo Osa Keshu Anu Kobatan Jawani Zawale Jimbe Paru Chela so Kone Kondo Keshu Chungichin the Chimeta Project Shinji Samocha.
The third of that list of subheadings was that how virtue becomes progressively more and more potent, and to check into that. And verse number 83 does that. The perfections such as generosity are progressively more exalted, but for a little morality, I should not forsake a great gift. Principally, I should consider what will be of most benefit for others.
가서 집에 파진 라소바 셰라지 파르데 집에 파도 오스다 집어서봐 아니 가서 집어제 가서 추진 집어제 추진제다 소바제 아니 가서래다 간제 추진제 삼대제 셰라제 오다 간제 데데 파진 주게 파르데 집에서 봐도 코네 콘도 캐슈시 제발자라서 오다 파진 고마 저거다 간제 지금 되게 됐다. 그래다 지레 지게셔와 차차되어 어디다 아니 되게 건가야 아니 되거저데 야라데다 단제 투에 셔랍들도 숨스거다 셔럽이 파지는 냠네 아니 다치 봐 용해치도 다 되게 그거 아직 파지시 받게 용은 되기도 와 어디다 되게 그 야라소로 저 어디 제발 잘라 되게 그 냠슬랑도 같이 그랬어 되게 그거 아니 파지 찍도 찍이 나라야 아니 두두 좋아 집에 써봐. 아니 집에 가서 그 집에 sabde 집에 셔럽체네. 어떤데잖아. 왔다까지 지금 그거 수받체네. 왔다 냠술 안 도받체네. 조고요. 어떤데잖아. 잘라서 좀 도받체네. 아니 다가는 제 개와 충의체도 쳐봅니다. 왔다. 즉 개와 쳐보지 주변 국어 위협하지. 아니 네 먼저 제 충의지를 파시. 충의지도 되게 맞아 디 아니 쳐보도야 바제 마소 받잖아 아니 쳐보도도 쳐보라도 아니 대타지 뭐잖아 아니 중의대도 다 지단 개와 체다 중세도 做 꿀롱라잖아 꿀롱도 쉬우지게 쳐버려 좋아 꿀롱데 아니 체디 디게 잡으더는 체디도 다 저 뭐들 하다미 고바더는 뭐들 하면 그 타바더는 타바 탐제집에 되느냐는 탐제집에 주로 다 돼서 꿀롱도 쉬우지게 쳐버려 꿀롱데 쳐보도야 요와도 마도와잖아 아니 이제 가서래 먼저 하다 미 고마터에 레서를 제가 이나다 거기 땅과 놀사로와 제대 직과 진양 제고 요리때 얘네 꾸는 거 돈에 아니 거 대부 중앙 용어 되기도 왔다는데서 중 가서데 체부 팔려다는 충주 주변에 맞지 맞잖아 하고만 다 먹어라 다가라 하고와 이나 하고와 이나 어디 체부도 중국도 무엇이 맞잖아 아니 체부도 좀 맞아 제 중국 대해서 페나 란도의 현대니 나네 담고와 주나 조제 생기도 사모시 셰아사 셰도 조고 두고바 셰오다 란다 생기도 니게 나네 다 지금 샤고에 셰와이나 거기 샤고서 샤이데 랑게도도 파 샤도에 체체 아니 생기도 땅도는 거 그랬어 그러나 담과지 제고요나 다 지금 샤 지금 레셰 탐시 가야 민도나 아니 생기도 레도 받지 그랬어 그래 제가다 딱가자 랑게 되어지에 아니 생게 되어 주베체도 생게 되어 주베체도 아니 랑게 되어지에 돈다 되면 랑게 세사고데 세사에데 아니 세사네 랑게 되어 주베치다 세사에 랑게 루초에 쳐도데 이나야 다 거바 신네 다 루초네 배주 딱 가르스탄고도 배주 심제 생게 쳐도 땅에서는 근데 그 신뢰 차로도 와 현재 차도도 와. 어다도 거바시베 돈에 아니 저거 류디 배주 당당의 만화와 제치. 좋아. 다 체디 디기 잠라 체디 디기를 찬디 디 통계 잠라 아니 류디 초는 배주 당에 제바에는 아니 거바치 못 주마도로. 당간자 류디 지나 소소 류디데 이네 류디 다 이신의 노빌룰 이신의 노블라 아니 줄도 받잖아 다 심지어 생각 되는 주변에 배주 땅도는 이신 노빌룰 주버와 다 되는 임도 어떤데 전다가 이제 랑게 지금 류초에도 세 사바이나 세 사에데 심지어 생각 되는 주변에 쳐도다 류초도 받지 안지 제와나 아니 류데 이신의 노빌룰 주버와 다 때마다 체디 디기 근데 지금 아니 지금 통계 주변에서 류도 좋았잖아 다 류도 디바 상관 소리에 주고 차버와 어때 내 마음에 저 코치 럽체사 좀도 받아 하고 받잖아 다디 디거도 럽종 제네만 다 하고 뭐도 럽종 제네 셰바 제네 아니 거 아니 지금 당가 뭐노 왔잖아 아니 충모도 발려 침모도 좀도 받지 제디 개체 못해서 뭐도 어쩌라
And so in this case here, what it's referring to in terms of the generosity, again, this is in the context of the 6 perfections. So the virtues related to generosity then are more exalted when they're done in relation to ethics and so on, up to patience, up to enthusiastic effort, up to meditation, and finally to the perfection of wisdom itself. And of course, there's the generosity of generosity, the generosity of ethics, the generosity of patience, the generosity of enthusiastic effort, the generosity of meditative concentration, the generosity of wisdom as well. And in all those contexts, then one is increasing the efficacy of that virtue. So it's very, very important that we're doing so with of course, the bodhicitta motivation as well. And the degree to which we can put the understanding of emptiness into there is very, very important. And indeed, when we look on it, it's motivation that is the crucial aspect here. So we can have the motivation for whatever we do to be directed towards this life, just the happiness of this life, or future rebirth as a human being or a celestial being in accordance with the smaller capacity being, or the attainment of liberation according to the medium capacity being, are what we need to focus on and be solely dedicated to is the motivation to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, and therefore keep within the Mahayana ideal at all times in all of our actions. And so that's absolutely important, and to kind of like know, that we are making the correct choice in all of our actions, to really avoid making wrong choices, and to kind of know what to leave aside, 99% of the time, one's own purpose in order to focus on the purpose of others. And so to understand this in the context as well, say we're hungry, we need to eat. So we are eating, which is ostensibly, fulfilling my own purpose. But I am motivated to eat in order to dedicate, therefore, the energy in my own physical actions from body to work for the benefit of others. And I will do that. And so, therefore, that is also dedicated towards others. And so choosing wisely is very, very important. And that in doing so, one is maintaining this attitude towards this body that we have as not just the kind of physical kind of entity that kind of carries me around, but rather as a wish-fulfilling gem, of a body. And that means that I care for it through eating, but only to put it to work for other sentient beings. And in that way, it becomes that wish-fulfilling gem, and not to kind of like then use the energy of that body to engage in negativities, for example, or to behave in a kind of a way that is not mindful. And so that we study this, isn't it? We engage in the process of study, of assimilating the information in order not to make these kinds of mistakes, but to choose correctly and make the most of every opportunity we have.
我得写吧，因为他这个人，他感觉这个说的短点把掐掉多，他的人，但是一张短的中国制度，个说的中国制度起不了嘛，当然是我得写，说他让他先你这个本来当个结果就呢，先做起去，当个这个当过的，让当一些，先的，给什么这过去的，我得写，结果数不多都是生的。
Likewise, then in that verse where it says, you know, for a little I should not forsake a great, and this is in this text. It's explained as, for example, if it's a choice between fulfilling something for yourself or fulfilling the needs of others, choose to fulfill the needs of others. This is what's the main thing. And of course, the most important thing, and so one should do that to fulfill the needs of others first and foremost.
他的先个就是的这个做的开始的让真正的先前这你是个有的，他略过一点让真正的略过的是先真正的当的让过的是。
So again, you can make that choice between the self-cherishing and the cherishing of others. And so when there is that choice, you put aside the self-cherishing attitude and concentrate on cherishing others. And so we leave it there for today.
Well, so that Namjun Nashicha and a rangi doing the Lama to be Lama set up there, but Lama to be the Takachi. What did it say?
So then again, we bring our mind to the dissolution. We did bring our focus on the figure that we're visualizing in the front, the figure of the root guru, and in the form of Buddha Shakyamuni.
아니 저 가서 뒤지 감송 좋아를 좀 가봐게 왔네 동네에 맞아 왔어 들리 녀바 주에 년종게 아니 년종 공부시네 아니 근데 녀바 주에 년종을 로더니 랑게 집어라 아니 거서 아니 지금 뺨마 담아게 왔을 주수 삼사체 아니 심지어 탐정도 산재 고마 토비 쓰게 토바치기 쓰게 나한테 가봐도 째죠 대체도 주주 년기 쓰게 된 samla kulo choba jete de choge ngati kamatu tsecho ane luida semna nigal patse luida tsede nig mare segbe de tsede nig mare nga mewa tsena mare ro kasala nga yoba ti noye tubu yore ro da nga yoda de yuden tuba te tu tsa me to sna gaja ka tsa de lo to sha ane dende gaja ka sang ngebe lo tini ane kasale chibo pema 담아게베 때도 님에게 뭐 약화치 주소 섬세체. 내가 심지어 탐정 것도 산재 공부하는 거는 맞다나 지금은 또 토바치기 삼사가 두바치게 두바데 다외기 뭐 약화치 주다. 근데 님의 때도 내 소서 어떻게 공부하셔.
So then we begin to generate the suitable seating arrangement on our own crown for the invitation of the Guru Buddha there. And we start to reflect on the suffering element of wherever we are born in any of the three realms of existence. We're still within cyclic existence. We still are in the nature of suffering. So renunciation becomes a key consideration, wanting to gain a definite emergence from that suffering. And from that, we generate that which symbolizes renunciation, the mandala, the lotus seat, mandala seat. And then this motivation of I want to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. I am the one listening to the Bodhisattva's way of life teaching. And this I that we're referring to Where is that? So is that sort of objectively existing self? We look into the body to look for it, not finding it there. We look into the mind and not finding it there. We ask, what is it something that's completely non-existent then? And the answer is no, of course not, because we know we exist based on experience. We have experience of me, of myself. But asking then how does it exist? And we reach that in kind of inviolable conclusion that it is only merely existent in dependence upon on thought, merely imputed on thought. And so that then brings to mind the notion of emptiness, and the wisdom which is symbolized by the sun mandala disc. And then of course, the aspiration, I want to attain a state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, is the mind of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment itself. And that's symbolized by the moon disc.
Dagi jiwa pepe de kadishima kusu tu junguru tsatu su, tena sunde chene, sunde tsar sum chene, sunde takbi kapsu pe, nibe kapsu shu, sumbe kapsu tetu shuna, sanje kuma mato kubato, jesu sumsu, sopsa jana, wadira kumbashe.
And then we issue the invocation, or the invitation, or recite the invocation verse thrice to the figure of Guru Muninja Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front. O glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown, and keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure begins the journey from the space in front to our crown. At the end of the second, the figure has found a seat that we have prepared. And at the end of the third, we have the certainty that the Buddha will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment. We'll rejoice in that.
What is Konchok? What is anything? And because of the Yala Tuba, Mendeta Chava Pune, Chaza water, Shabbat, Kawajos, the Tabjata, Chadu, Saji Pushi, but reality, Sanjation, the Jogan, the Shaman Chos, Idangoro, Mandala, Niantaya, Miss Takanja, do you know Yala to Casodeta, Yala Casodeta, Yala to Sosa Titan, some of Tangent. Some Tanjan and the Duzi Babjatus Change. What are the gentlemen? Yabuyo? What are kind of Yaladuma maintains pure geneta to Tom Dibata Dava. What are the Jun Sons of Kumbashe? And Yaladuma maintains your pure dinner, and then Rangichual and never Lamatuan Dojanko, Tugula, and they were Kumbaja, Tetunism, some of what the Kumbaja to the Yabuyo. What did it?
So then we can make the offering of the seven-limbed practice along with the mandala offering. And if we have the time, it is very good to practice the seven limbs in more extensive fashion in order to accumulate merit and purify negativity using the descending nectar light meditation method. So that's but for now we concentrate on the Buddha at the crown through our sincere offerings and practice, and the Buddha experienced a sense of bliss which combines with voidness and abides in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
Chida Sanje la ane pe tedoni ishi majibe du yomar ka du ine tedoni ishi kigu yorte ine rangi tsosar tijan jene ta yana duwa mende de jawa piwala tene ke chuwa piwala tene ane ta Sanje tu keso shimbo yungurwa ta di ane tele tene di dewa tonga tere kumbashe to na rangi jiga kaso de ta jiga tedoni ishi ane pe ke ane jiga kaso de jiga tunge da and Tunyan getting the Gulu Trote, what did it?
And so, of course, the Buddha is constantly abiding in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. We don't need to generate this for them, but it is really for our sake. It's an aspect of the practice that here, in order for us to be able to accumulate merit and to purify negativities, we make offerings in this way. We visualize this happening in this way, not just to kind of like, as it were, put a seal on the virtuous practices that we are doing, but also to create kind of the auspiciousness of our being able to develop all the conducive conditions to abide in this way and to dispel all the inconducive conditions that might stand in our way.
Namba yin sabe jala kari sawa na kari tunga yin chuba piwa le wo chuba piwa ne samlo dine stang tuna pe agora wota chuba piwa de ne ane chiga sanje de chanchu samba tam jege chuba tangdo lang so sa ane chuba di sheba la dine teta ga tuju la dewa to dewa tongba tezo nyusme yishi kia so sa daga ne sheng yunja piwa chuba kari piwa yin ne ane teta tuju la dewa to dewa tongba tezo nyusme wo dine kumba she tuna wota de chuba shibu chiga chuba lana mi pa chanchu re wota de
And so it's very, very, very good if we can take every opportunity, whether we're, when we're eating or drinking or engaging in any kind of thing, to make it an offering like this, and to make it an offering to not just all the Buddhas, but all sentient beings, and to see them actually partaking and also gaining the sense of bliss, which gives rise to voidness, and they are then abiding in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness, is a very auspicious practice, and indeed transforms that offering into a limitless offering. Peerless offering.
지금 대령 예와종 예종 공부시네 라는 닝데 배마다 제지라 대령 예와종 예종 로디 님바마다 지체 교수 삼사차 아니 저기 다 된데게 다지 심지어 산재 공부 중에서 소소를 찾아버리나 소소 가봐도 제죄네 엔다기네 실제 제죄는 많이 받아가란 걸 셈샤 된데게 가자 가점디 아니 님의 좀 뭐냐고 저 다외도 그래서 다들이 그 배마다 맞게 때도 어떤 신내소 삼사차 되네 심지어 탐색에도 요한이도 산재 공마도 두고 타바지기 삼사기 아니 dum바디에 아니 지금 다외 좀 뭐냐고 주네 근데 님의 때도 내소서 지나 반대서 라마도 다기 님과 배면서 그래서 구수도 좀 그렇죠 그래서 내 저걸 랑게 지고 라마 샤자서 그 지보는 뭐 전전 아니 전전 님의 가서 슈 니베마다 게든 수메코도 때도시나 산제 고마마도 제수서 때는 니베마다 가좀는 나비 닝내다는 시티가도 도제고 생각봐 체가제 가제 뒤 타고도 근데 때문에 생각 다에도 문문 다에도 때는 나한테 거대 때는 제주 잠에 양서 오마라바자 나티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티티
And then we begin to consider the invitation of the Guru on our crown down to our heart center, and to start the preparation of a suitable seating arrangement through again reflecting on a renunciation, how cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering, and how there's no getting beyond that until we again release from a cyclic existence itself, and from this sense of wanting that definite release, renunciation, we generate the lotus mandala seat, and then this I, wishing to engage and wishing to gain that release, that self, again looking to find that self, not finding it in body mind, reaching that point of it being just merely imputed by thought, the mere the refutation of the object of refutation, that mere absence there producing the moon sun disk mandala seed, and then the aspiration of wanting to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, the mind of enlightenment. And that aspiration itself becomes the moon disk mandala seed. And then the invocation verse, so glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure of the Guru Muninja Shakyamuni Buddha moves from the crown chakra down through the central channel. At the end of the second, they have arrived at their pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have that certainty that they will remain again until we attain the state of enlightenment. Something that really we can rejoice in. Then the petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at the tip by a 5-pronged semi-white vajra, and then surrounded by the 3 mantras of the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction.
아니 저기 수요바티 아니 구송틀에 왜서 빠도 매버트는 손이 조달을 줘야 아니 로다 줘야다 구송 딜레테네 줘야겠다 로다 가서데 구임베자 아니 데레 구송틀에 왜서 빠도 매버트는 랑게 지원에 간디가 바로 왜서 트는 왜서 좋아할 때는 랑게 토마메만 디바치다 켜봐도야다 즉 가서데다 그자 류거데 숨마고네 시 이거는 숨불라서 미게 주본 거 주든 다가네시 미게 주본 거 주든다 그러면 예바 세대 정말 통하면 되거든 지금 담자 다 통하면 싸워 대다 단자 장시 다줘서 제백하는 것들 라식 하는 것 예바 그리스는 다 숨서 다가네 신게 개바도야 다가자 저 세대 통하면 번에 아니지 가서다 지금 소소답에 또 받았고 자주 쓰면 나와도 상하다 담스다 거 파다 말만 그거다 기본 로블로 도와서 맞죠 뭐 군조솔은 레벨 내기와 담배 쳐보 법의준들로 구하다 뭐 심절은 레벨 내기 봐서 디과미 기버서 다이 기버다 신기버라 제소 이라고 해서 신기도 주바 신기버라 제소 이라고 돌아 토레도 답에 계속 구하다 예동도 초조 예동도 추가 지져 받을 봐 장아지 다와 중수 상사체 안 다가는 시 류게 나자 생게 동에 중시 커만이 봐 자롱 틸레이 견 타져 봐 장아쳤다는 아니 다가는 시 하동도 다 뉴도 산제 고마토를 견 치시다 타면에 나세 뭐 타면 나세 견 탐세 장 가나타자 다바란 잡아시 차도가 야고 시 중수 소어들 고마시
Then from within the Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha starts to emanate powerful light from the heart center, moving out through the petals, through every cell of our bodies, from the crown to the soles of our feet, and in doing so, affecting a purification of all negativities and obscurations that we've accumulated since the beginningless time. And the negativities, the 10 non-virtues, for example, of those associated with physically engaged in negativities like killing and stealing and sexual misconduct, or verbally engaged in negativities like lying, harsh speech and divisive speech and idle gossip, and the mentally engaged in negativities of covetousness and malicious intent and wrong view, and indeed all negativities related to those and that have been engaged in this life, in the previous life, and in all lives since beginningless time. The naturally occurring negativities, those that have been proscribed by the Buddha, negativities related to infractions and downfalls of the pratimoksha vows, of the Bodhisattva vows, and of the tantric vows, of disrespect that we have shown to our parents, right up to our gurus, etc., that the negativities that we have done ourselves, that we have induced others to do, and that we have rejoiced in the doing of, and all negativities there, and particularly the abandoning of the Dharma, all then of negativities of causing disease or illness in the body, of disruptions in the mind, of imbalances in the elements of the body, of the channels, winds and drops, and in particular that which causes the greatest obstacle to our quickly being able to attain enlightenment, being mired in ordinary appearance, of viewing and conceiving of things in their ordinary sense. And that is completely purified in that we see now everything in its pure aspect, in the pure realm.
Hotel Chanda, so the ship to Luni, Lama Shayasan, put the Henji Chingin, so the Lama Shayasan Kulujusu, some such. So the ship to say to send the language Lama Shayasan to the Henji Chingin, so the same the Lama Shayasan to the Josu, some such. Rangel Lunga is a Lama Shayasa Kuzudo, or Yeme Josu, some such. Tea, the what, the Retumbat, the Donius Mayishi Josu, some such. Ran Lama Shayasan, or Nedia, and what Nedia, and Lama Shayasan, Tabashin to Josu, some such. Ran Lama Shayasan Kuzudo, or Yeme Joati, Nala Rashima was some time. And they took a Lama Shayasan, a Padu, Mebatun, Kajagan, just Kajagan, West subject. Kajaga subject time get down the number part doing it. And subject related Lavashas to Baltin, Deda, Tanja Lavashas and Kusu war you make use of such. Deda net that neck John Tanja Lavashas and Tavish in the Jewels. What does subject Tanja get to the Sanjay Kumato, subject Sanjay Salaku is tiny material, go to Taya that you that in million about the Kochova, Sanjay number the Chabat Kochova, Taya shoot so Kumbasha. That's some Jatam Sanjay Sala Goba. Rasan and teach the Javakari Tuba, they to be social chapa, you didn't Matuba, Topa Patas of the Society, the water, the don't use to make she gets so Kumacha.
And through the combination of my own more subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of a Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of the Buddha. And I rejoice how wonderful then I see myself and now my body, speech, and mind as being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of an enlightened being. That the place I am in also is transformed of all faults and becomes the celestial abode of an enlightened being. Again, how wonderful this is. And then viewing myself as lacking any inherent existence, I send out light rays from my own heart center as an enlightened being, and to equal a number to all the sentient beings in all the 6 realms of existence. Upon dissolving into all those sentient beings, they are relieved of all fault and imperfections, and they rise as completely perfected enlightened beings. And their abodes as well are completely cleansed of any fault and are stained, and they are completely transformed into the celestial realms or celestial abodes of enlightened beings. And again, I rejoice how wonderful is that today is the day in which I have really fulfilled my purpose and the purpose of others. This is the day in which I've made this human existence absolutely, totally meaningful. And again, how wonderful this is the case. And so that I realize that the leading of all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment, the virtue that has facilitated that, and myself as the agent of that virtue, all are completely empty of any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. And that understanding, that realization produces a sense of bliss, which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
What is a Kaja, Tombani, the Samutan, Janju Semdan, the Samutan, take a Dewato, Tedonis, so what did they get? That doesn't mean your Mari, in a Meva, he shit to Samutan, Samutan, Namshina, and what the lamb yet the dredge. Yet the treasure. What did it? Kind of man, that the ones who never is to the Samutan, the Marite, in a tea, that's Sabian solo, tea, never ten, and tea, good, that tea, never ten, and new to take a time, the jet to a good shows. The day you are at Ransanje Kumatobo, Ransanje Kumatobala, Ran Janju, Semajo, Tabio Mari. The day you was at Nazo Mizzi Nalola, so Kibo Yungure, 두고 용거래 다 나서 용거라 다 기부 두고 나차 아니 지금 로겐고 차에 나차 중에 타마 시조에 게 컨디션 차바 게 야고 있는다 두자 있는다 가야 개방모도 대다 탐자 돈이 인지 님부지가 남규래 기베 규래 교와쇼 디 튕겨를 교와쇼 소통 와체들이
And this infusing of the minds of enlightenment with the mind of emptiness in what we have just done, and of course it's something that we're only doing at an imaginative level now. It's kind of very much aspirational, but this aspirational sense is no less important. That we kind of like continually engage in thinking like this. We are creating the causes for it to be an actuality in the future. And it's kind of very, very important that we see what we are doing as the seeds that will become manifest through our, consistent and genuine dedications, and that this kind of a generation of the mind of enlightenment and infusing that mind with the view of emptiness. It's something that we try to do in every aspect of our lives, that, whatever the conditions that we find ourselves in, whether we're happy or sad or unhappy or sick or old or whatever the conditions are, we are, see them as conditions to create the causes to attain enlightenment. And that if we're able to do this, then of course we are getting closer and closer and closer to enlightenment.
That's what.
Vajrasamara, great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Rajapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown, jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drakpa, at your feet, I make with big respects.
Okay, thank you.